Hey everybody, PBSC podcast hosts Mark and Steve here with a special message about our revolutionary online recovery program for addict spouses and couples called Dare to Connect. Multiple times every week, we get messages from subscribers in the program. They're people just like you. They're trying to heal from the devastation of sex and porn addiction and betrayal trauma. And here's a few of our most recent submissions. Here's one from an addict in recovery. It says, D2C has principles that everyone should utilize regardless of their circumstances. It doesn't matter your coping mechanisms. It matters that you want to work towards genuine connection with your partner.
That's awesome. Another testimony from an addict continues on. My wife is just starting out in training as a licensed therapist. Dare to Connect has been far more useful to her than her degree.
Wow.
The way Mark and Steve apply what they've learned is always so redemptive. D2C has opened doors for my relationship that I thought would be shut forever. Mark and Steve are an incredible resource of information on the subject of sex addiction and betrayal trauma. We could not do this journey without their help.
Here's one from a partner who's been with us for nearly a year. I want you both to know that it is because of you guys and D2C that I'm able to be in the place that I am today. I will always be grateful to you both for your feedback and prompt replies to my questions. I can't even come close to putting it into words how valuable my time spent with y'all this past year has been to my life. Thank you for everything you taught me about betrayal trauma and boundaries and thinking errors and loving myself and making myself a priority and standing up for myself.
Love that submission. And then as we close out here today, guys, one more account from another addict in recovery. I wish I had a platform like this 14 years ago where I could have learned and done the hard work of recovery before I had done all this damage to myself and to my spouse. And to be candid with all of you, that's exactly why we created Dare to Connect. Mark and I found ourselves in that place. Messages like these and the others like them, they're what Dare to Connect really is all about, guys, and why Mark and I do what we do. Whether you're an addict or a partner of an addict, and no matter where you find yourself in the recovery process, Dare to Connect can take you to the next level. Don't wait another day to catapult your recovery forward. Today is your day for change. Visit us at daretoconnectnow.com to pick up your free 2-week trial of Dare to Connect today. Hey everybody, I'm Steve Moore.
And I'm Mark Castleman.
We know the pain and heartbreak of porn and sex addiction.
And we know the triumph of breaking completely free.
Every day, we help our clients find hope and healing.
Join us in the fight to take back your life, your marriage, and be stronger than ever.
This is the PBSC Squared podcast. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the PBSC podcast. Steve Moore and Mark Castleman here with episode 327. He turned me into porn. Now I don't want sex at all. Is this normal? It's quite the title.
Yes, it is.
Pretty straightforward. We got a submission from a partner that we're going to read, but you can kind of see where we're going right out the chute. So we're just going to dive in because there's a lot to do. Hi, Mark and Steve. First of all, thank you so much for everything that you do. I found your podcast after finding out about my husband's secret porn use, and it was the first thing that ever was able to put words to how I was feeling and help me communicate and stand up for myself in a way that I thought I never could. For months, I felt like I was crazy, that this was a me problem that needed to be fixed, and that all men do this, according to, in quotes, according to my husband, my couples therapist, and internet threads. They all apparently were telling her that.
Wow.
So again, thank you. And you're very welcome. We always appreciate those votes of confidence and the compliments. My question is about sexual aversion on the side of the betrayed partner. My story, as all are, is complicated, so I'll try to keep it brief, and she does do a good job of that. I had always asked for a no porn barrier stemming from sexual abuse as a child, which was blamed on the man's problem with porn. I thought as an adult that if I could keep porn away from my relationship, that boundary would keep me safe from the objectification that plagued my past. Fast forward to 8 years into my marriage, my husband had been secretly using porn for years. I found out because of sexual dysfunction, which I blamed, and he let me on my changed postpartum body. I thought I just wasn't attractive anymore, and that eventually I could lose the weight, get back to the gym, and resolve it. And she says, "Sad, I know, but I've been working on this in therapy too. But I was raised by a porn addict father who made me feel crappy about myself and not skinny." My husband has been working hard with personal therapy, his faith, and trying to make amends for both the betrayal and to the emotional abuse and gaslighting I endured. My concern, however, is that the sexual aversion for me keeps getting worse. At one point, right before I confronted him on D-Day, during an intimate moment, he asked me to moan like a porn star. I am trying to emphasize and understand the insanity of addiction, and that what is sought in porn is not what someone necessarily wants in real life, but I'm having trouble wanting sex again when I was compared to porn and quote lost basically. When he was picturing imagining them while with me, I tell my husband it is very triggering for me to try, like I feel like I am walking naked and vulnerable onto a stage with hundreds of women who look and apparently sound better than me in my partner's eyes. He told me during his addiction he wanted to turn me into porn too. So I do not feel, even in a state of addiction, that I was spared in any way from being compared to and not meeting up to the standards of porn or his fantasy, she says. Any advice on how to feel comfortable being vulnerable again after such a deep betrayal? I've tried EMDR, therapy, antidepressants, but nothing is helping me not be immediately triggered trying to enter that space with this man, even when I see how hard he is working. With time and boundaries actually being respected, will these feelings return? I wish I could take some time and space away from it all, but we are raising two young kids, so that's not really a possibility for me.
Mm, wow.
It's a
Well, first,
great, powerful
yeah,
submission.
very powerful, very, very, very balanced, very well thought out. Man, we just applaud this amazing partner and all the partners listening. So the courage, the insight, she's obviously embarked on a path of personal growth. She's working hard. And it sounds like he's doing a lot of right things. But boy, we have a lot to say about this today. our, our hearts really go out to her, and we have empathy for him. I remember being in this place in deep addiction and
Yeah.
where I pornified my partner, right? Now I want to confront one thing right up front. I hoped that this old cultural mindset was progressively slipping away, but we still see it showing up in the culture, even after everything we've been through with the research and all the clinical data and all the ways that we know that this betrayal and this integrity abuse and the great wreckage it is heaped upon partners. All men do this.
Mm.
I really had hoped that that was pretty much leaving the culture, but then we hear that it's still being used even by therapists, right? Even in too many ways. Well, this is just a man thing. This is what men do. This is what men need. So there's still this thing in the culture that wants to normalize this betrayal. And I want to just, I'm going to quickly point out how many, how not just I was about to say how many guys listening, but how many of everybody listening. Let's say that I was to court you and date you and sit you down before entering into a marriage or partnership contract with you and say, hey, by the way, I'm gonna enter into this quote exclusive contract with you. I only have eyes for you. I'm loyal to you. It's just going to be you and me, except for on a regular basis, I'm going to be getting naked, so to speak, emotionally naked, visually naked. I'm going to be seeing undressed women by the thousands and tens of thousands. And I want to make sure that you're okay with that before we enter into this contract.
Mm.
Oh, by the way, when we have sex, I will be visualizing lots and lots of those naked women and bringing them into our bedroom space. Just wanted you to know that. And all the men do it. It's pretty much a thing that you just have to accept and be all right with. How many of you would enter into a relationship contract on that basis?
Probably not many.
Right?
We would say that's a fair bet. Probably not many.
Yeah. Yeah. So her expressions, her boundaries, they are not unreasonable in any way, shape, or form. And what she's expressing is not dysfunction, it's trauma, it's betrayal, right? This is a guy living in a secret sexual basement. He has a life that is exclusive from her, has had exclusive from her. She can't participate in. She has no way to compete with, and he's brought that whole world into their what's supposed to be their exclusive, intimate, one-on-one bedroom. So this is all totally and absolutely reasonable what she's expressing.
Yeah,
So we could say, and we have done podcasts about that,
sure.
right?
100%. Well, and I do. There are, as Mark indicated, there are many elements about that, and so we really did want to focus in on the dynamic here, right? This coming back place, right? When he gets into serious recovery, when he starts to make sincere efforts, which it sounds like by her account he is, um, and she is trying to do her own healing work. How does a partner work through? How does a partner come back to the sexual bed, for lack of a better term, right? How does that authentically happen, and what needs to happen in order for that to occur? So that's where we're going to focus today. And the sexual aversion piece, as Mark talked about, right? This objectification trauma, as a way of putting it, isn't something new to this partner. If you recall her submission, unfortunately, this is a complex trauma situation for her, meaning that this,
Yes.
as devastating as this was in the relationship, this has roots in her childhood. So we're touching on a traumatic past that spans a lifetime in many
Yes.
respects. And so the healing work here, unfortunately, is going to, be deeper and in some ways we would argue, take longer.
I mean,
Um,
we're talking right down to the place of being sexually abused, uh, being raised by a father who was a porn addict, and that father figure criticizing her when she did not match up to the images that he was seeing in pornography.
yeah.
Literally putting his own daughter on the comparison scale.
Yes.
You can't
Absolutely.
calculate the impact of this.
Absolutely. Well, and part of what is needed for this, and again, it's just a beginning. It sounds like he is currently working on an amends process, and we hope that he is working with a qualified professional in doing that, and that she is involved in that process to whatever degree she feels is appropriate, so that his side of the street at least is cleaning up as much as possible from again that amends piece.
Well,
But
and there was one thing occurred to me, Steve, as we're sitting here, because of this going clear back to her childhood and what we call complex trauma, up on trauma, layered over years and decades. She's been conditioned to feel and sense what? Sexual intimacy equals danger, comparison, objectification, not being enough, right? Competition. Is it any wonder that she feels an aversion to that when that's the meaning that sexual intimacy has?
mm,
Right? This explains her nervous system response. It's her body trying to protect her, not betray her. She's her whole system stepping into protection mode based on this big long history. So
yeah.
this is so you can only imagine the deep injury now when he says to her, and I applaud him for finally getting honest and being transparent. But when he says, "Yeah, I turned you into pornography all the time," you
Mm.
can't calculate the deep injury of realizing such a thing with her whole history.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, yeah,
100%. Well, and when you take all that, right, and you factor all that in and you kind of add it all up, right, it is important to recognize that that does all culminates when this partner is trying, and like many of you probably, when you partners try to engage with a partner following betrayal, right?
yes.
That trauma response is multifaceted, and we talk about it here all the time. Um, but it is completely normal for an escalation on that level to take place, right? Because sexuality is one of the most intimate spaces, if not by argued by some, the most at least physically intimate spaces that we can enter. When that space has become unsafe, powerful protectors move in to try to safeguard that space going forward.
Because what was being heaped upon her? Being compared and in competition with pornography, being asked to perform like pornography. He literally asked her to perform like someone in porn.
Yeah.
And then he admitted that he was mentally and emotionally replacing her during the act of sex.
Yeah.
These are deep issues.
So there's a lot of feelings and emotions, and if we were just to identify a few that we're sure that partner feels, and again, many of you can probably connect to this, feeling not just used, but also violated, um, taken advantage of,
Yep.
discarded.
Mhm.
Um, for lack of a better term, I don't have a better one, but traded, almost like a trading card. I'll just swap you in or swap you out
Yeah,
as it
we had a
suits
little
me.
note here that said she wasn't just excluded during those sexual times, she was rewritten into his addiction.
Yeah.
She's like written into the script of his addiction.
Well, and that is a huge trauma on its own. I was made to play an unwilling part in not only his fantasies, but in just he made me a part of destroying our marriage.
Mm. Oh yeah, yeah.
I was used as a tool to harm this relationship. Which again, that we could do a whole podcast on
Yeah, we
that. We
talk we
won't
talk
today,
about
but there's
uninformed consent, right?
yeah, tremendous amounts of injury in that regard. And so why let's just kind of normalize the place that she's at, right? Why the effort from him isn't fixing it, at least it isn't yet.
Mm.
It sounds like he's engaging in some good things. And it is hard to fully answer this question admittedly without knowing his side of the street. But if we were to focus on hers, the first thing we'll say is what you hear us say often, which is his recovery and her recovery are not the same thing. His healing and her healing are two different paths. There's
Yep,
his, there's hers, and then there's ours.
yep.
And it is critical that spouses, partners of betraying addicts, are not only do they give themselves permission for that healing and that recognition to take place, but that the addict be practicing empathy, awareness, and mindfulness around the same and creating that space. And it sounds like this might be me reading into her submission a little bit, but it sounds like even as he is trying to help, it does feel as though there also is some sexual pressure going on.
Mm.
Um, like he's well, hey, I know, we're getting better, right? So why can't we do this? And it sounds to me as though he's not fully grasping the breadth of what's going on here, the depth of her pain and the reasons why she still feels unsafe. And so while we applaud him for doing the work that he has done, a wise betraying partner in this situation will make really mindful conclusions and decisions about where the line is in terms of giving his partner space to heal and then take about 5 steps back from that line. And that's
Yeah,
probably where he ought to be
yeah,
operating.
yeah. Because what do we have to establish here? Healing requires consistent, long-term safety experiences, not just recovery effort on his part. That's a really important concept. Long-term safety experiences in the coupleship, not just in the bedroom, but in all sorts of ways in their relationship. Is he creating experiences where he is creating an environment of safety for her?
Yeah.
In ways that he has made her unsafe in the past, does he now seek for safety? Seek to be consistent?
Well, in a bigger picture sense, and this is just kind of going off script for a little bit, but in a bigger picture sense, as I'm thinking about it, I mean, really, this partner needs to experience more empowerment in this relationship in general.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we're making some educated inferences here, but chances are in relationships where there has been this much, I'm just going to use the term overbearingness by a partner or pressuring or gaslighting or other tactics used to get one's way. It's rare at least in my experience, for that to happen exclusively in the sexual realm and then nowhere else.
Yeah,
Speaking to my own relationship, I mean, I was definitely pressuring in the sexual side of things in my relationship as an addict, but I was also very I was just a control freak in general, like most addicts are, frankly. I was looking to everything, including sexuality, to provide emotional homeostasis for me. I wasn't cultivating it or doing the work to cultivate it internally, so I relied on everything and everyone else around me to try to create that space. And that results in that unhealthy level of control. And it's a rare day when I run across a relationship in my office where that is not at least partially going on. So we're not just talking about her taking back empowerment in terms of, and we're going to talk about the sexual piece of that. But as we have that discussion, we hope that she'll just keep in mind um, that this may be in other areas as well, right? In budgeting, do you have an equal voice at the table? In how the kids are raised,
Yep.
the ways that happens? Is there, do you feel like you have, because if you're, if it, and this is a word to the wise for all you addicts listening, it doesn't matter how much of a space at the table you create in this one area. If you pull out that chair in the sexual realm, but keep it shoved in every other area, good luck.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
This is a relationship shift that we're talking about here.
The overall relationship, the dynamic of control, the dynamic of being
collaboration as a
Yep,
as a basic concept.
Collaboration. Now we can talk about some practical steps with regard to the sexual side because she asked us that.
Correct.
Hey everybody, PBSE podcast hosts Mark and Steve here with a special message about our revolutionary online recovery program for addict spouses and couples called Dare to Connect. Multiple times every week, we get messages from subscribers in the program. They're people just like you. They're trying to heal from the devastation of sex and porn addiction and betrayal trauma. And here's a few of our most recent submissions. Here's one from an addict in recovery. It says, D2C has principles that everyone should utilize regardless of their circumstances. It doesn't matter your coping mechanisms. It matters that you want to work towards genuine connection with your partner.
That's awesome. Another testimony from an addict continues on. My wife is just starting out in training as a licensed therapist. Dare to Connect has been far more useful to her than her degree.
Wow.
The way Mark and Steve apply what they've learned is always so redemptive. D2C has opened doors for my relationship that I thought would be shut forever. Mark and Steve are an incredible resource of information on the subject of sex addiction and betrayal trauma. We could not do this journey without their help.
Here's one from a partner who's been with us for nearly a year. I want you both to know that it is because of you guys and D2C that I'm able to be in the place that I am today. I will always be grateful to you both for your feedback and prompt replies to my questions. I can't even come close to putting it into words how valuable my time spent with y'all this past year has been to my life. Thank you for everything you taught me about betrayal trauma and boundaries and thinking errors and loving myself and making myself a priority and standing up for myself.
Love that submission. And then as we close out here today, guys, one more account from another addict in recovery. I wish I had a platform like this 14 years ago where I could have learned and done the hard work of recovery before I had done all this damage to myself and to my spouse. And to be candid with all of you, that's exactly why we created Dare to Connect. Mark and I found ourselves in that place. Messages like these and the others like them, they're what Dare to Connect really is all about, guys, and why Mark and I do what we do. Whether you're an addict or a partner of an addict, and no matter where you find yourself in the recovery process, Dare to Connect can take you to the next level. Don't wait another day to catapult your recovery forward. Today is your day for change. Visit us at daretoconnectnow.com to pick up your free 2-week trial of Dare to Connect today.
So any pressure for sex has to be taken completely off the table by this addict. A total reset with regard to that. If there's any pressure or coercion or, being intimate and showing affection because he's wanting it to lead to the outcome of sex, and that's a regular pattern, all of that needs to come off the table, because what needs to happen here? There needs to be the establishment of non-sexual intimacy rituals, non-sexual intimacy patterns and practices. We talk about 8 areas of intimacy. Only one of those is sexual. There's 7 others. That is one of the ways that safety is going to be restored here, right? Because there needs to be a collaborative pacing about how the sexual side, when it comes back into the picture, how it comes, at what pace it comes, that has to be developed, not just by focusing on our sexual relationship, but our overall intimacy in all those 8 areas.
Well, and I would take it a step further. I think that the intimacy begins with him with himself. And what I mean by that is this is just kind of coming to mind, but I can feel myself get on a soapbox. I'm going to try not to step on it too much. But we talk about on this program and in our Dare to Connect program for addict spouses and couples all the time about this providing safeties piece, but there are multiple dimensions to that. The first is what we've been talking about to this point, right? Giving her space and doing these other things. But there's another side that I'm going to just soapbox for a second about. And maybe if you like this, sign up for Dare to Connect, grab the 2-week free trial because I can feel myself making a lesson for Dare to Connect soon about this. There's the whole other side of that, which is what really provides safety for a spouse isn't just giving her space, respecting her boundaries. It's you establishing your own recovery and presenting it and showing it and demonstrating it in a way that takes the emotional burden off of your partner, that sends the message unconditionally, I'm good because I'm taking steps on the daily to meet my needs and to operate emotionally independently in this relationship. I'm backing off from the emotional dependence that I have maintained with you because I don't use the term every a lot here, but every coupleship I have ever worked with, there has been an element of toxic codependency from the addict on the part of the partner. Sometimes that looks like anger and resentment and frustration. Sometimes it looks like puppy dog eyes and helplessness and victimhood. But it all comes back to the same notion of, I'm not okay, make me okay. So it always
Yep.
comes back to.
And
And
also,
that needs
yeah,
to die.
it does. It does, right?
We have to be showing up, gentlemen, in a way that says, I am doing my work to stand and to support myself so that I can show up and be a support to you. It's not just enough. Safety is not just removing unsafe elements. It's providing safe ones.
Exactly.
We don't just clear the landscape of landmines. We put landscaping in. We don't just rip out all the bad shit and say, okay, you're good now. We have to be moving in there proactively and saying, how can I make this a comfortable space for you? Because
Right.
I made it a war zone before.
And so what do we have as phrases that we use that guys will, I bristled to it. Guys will really put up walls of resentment when they hear a phrase like this: sex is optional. You, betrayed partner, get to set the pace with regard to this.
Yeah.
You hear phrases like guys like, what? Hold on, I'm not living in a sexless marriage. No way. Well, you made some choices and decisions over years and decades with betrayal, with infidelity, with all the things we talk about. Now you get to decide if you're willing to step up and be accountable and own all of this and to create true safety for her, which includes letting go of dependencies, letting go of sex as your go-to place to make your world good and right. It becomes optional. It's
Yes.
off the table, and she gets to set the pace for it to come back, and you truly collaborate.
Yeah.
It's essential.
Well, and it was going back to her healing, kind of shifting back gears, right? Because we want to keep this as focused on her as possible. She's the only thing she can control. Reclaiming body autonomy and personal worth, separate from desirability, is going to be essential here. We live in a world, and every partner knows it. Every addict should know it by if you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time. And if you haven't been living under a rock, it's difficult to quantify the societal pressure from a sexual perspective that women are under in our society.
It's huge.
Now, to be fair, it is quite high for men as well. Okay, this is not a measuring contest of who's got the more pressure, but women operate under a tremendous amount of it, and that's just our standard culture. That's just par for the course. When you add in these other factors that we've already mentioned, traumatic and otherwise, it's tremendous. And for many partners, especially with this traumatic background that she's talking about, this is kind of what we were talking about before. It's not just about creating that safety or finding it in the relationship. This is going to be on a more general level, separating, discovering, enhancing, and fleshing out what is your worth. aside from your breasts or your butt or your face or your hair length or your hair color, or all the other crap that we, you know, judge women by these days. Figuring out what brings inherent worth for you, and coming to an emotional connection with and a belief in it,
Yeah.
right? Being able to practice body autonomy in a lot of different ways is important. I'll
Mhm.
give you just a really quick side example where this may not sound like an obvious one, but it's true. I've worked with partners before who have young kids like this partner, where they've had to learn to tell their kids as they've gotten older, because obviously developmentally you have to be aware of when to do this, but where their kids want to be held all the time and it's no longer appropriate for that. No, you know what? You can walk. Mom doesn't need to hold you all the time. That's not mom's job, right? I can hold you at times. I can be there for you, but I also need time where I'm just mom. So quit, as one partner told it to me, quit dangling from my bra like ornaments. like, like I need space, right? That
Yeah, yeah,
now
yeah.
again, is that sexual? No. Is it in line with directly with what we're talking about? No. But for her, that was a part of that journey. Because in a non-sexual way, what was she kind of conditioned to be? My body's just for everybody around me. For my husband, it's for sex. For my kids, it's for... There was no like, hey, this is I'm me, right?
Yeah.
All y'all back off for a minute. Like I'm
Mhm.
me, and I need to have times where I'm just me. So hopefully that lands for you partners that are
Yeah,
listening.
yeah. So I love that body autonomy. I love this other note we made: personal worth that is separate from desirability. We have a whole culture that says you're desirable, for example, as a woman based on these physical characteristics or these ways that you show up in the bedroom or this or that or the other. And we call crap on all that. You have personal worth that has nothing to do with whether the culture or your partner says you're desirable, right? You're a worth because you are. And we encourage every partner listening to really get in tune and in touch with that. What is my personal worth based on? How am I an autonomous, sovereign, independent individual person, regardless of all that stuff? Really important part of her healing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I think that one thing that we do need to mention is if we cycle back to the addicts listening, because one thing that we didn't cover that we really should, we've covered it before, but there needs to be a consistent and a willingness to consistently re-emphasize and drive home the point more than just once, about the ownership of the objectification damage that we have done
Yes.
in our relationship. It's probably one of the more difficult topics that we cover working with addicts in terms of outside of their own healing and recovery. We hear it from guys often. Why do I have to keep repeating myself? Frankly, because you kept repeating the same message that your spouse isn't worth it in X, Y, and Z ways over and over and over again. So, welcome to recovery. I'm extending my hand out for those who are not watching,
Yeah, yeah.
on
As I
YouTube.
look at how many thousands of times every time I acted out over decades did I send a message to my spouse, you don't measure up, you're not good enough, you don't look this way, da 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 da. And so I'm going to complain because I need to keep repeating the other
Logic would
side of
sort of
that.
dictate that that may take a while for that to land home with a
Yeah.
partner,
You
right?
think?
And so that is important. And the patience piece with the sexual element, guys, is sex a desire that probably every man on planet Earth has? Yes, and to some degree, I think partners would fall into that same category as well. And where we will normalize that desire all day long. But if you're really serious about really your partner healing, and you're invested in this for more than just that component, then you are going to find a way to build yourself up and to meet your sexual needs in non-sexual healthy ways, and the needs behind it: validation, uh, connection, and that's a journey for addicts.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just extending the hand for those who are
Yeah.
listening.
And
Welcome to recovery. This is
we
part
don't
of the
we
process.
don't have time to go over it, but looking, guys, we invite every guy, every addict in recovery listening. What are the areas of your attitude, your thinking, your behaviors that throw you into this whole issue of entitlement, sexual
Yes.
entitlement? I'm entitled to all things sexual because we're in a relationship. That needs to be looked at closely and challenged within your own thinking.
Well, and that's for addicts. That's non-addicts.
Everyone.
Every guy on the planet and every partner on the planet, frankly, would do Somewhere along the line, in too many cultural sub-elements, we got used to the idea that because we signed a piece of paper or made some promises to each other or whatever, that somehow the other person like signed themselves over to us.
Yeah.
We do not front that idea here at Dare to Connect at all. We front the idea that they gave them exclusive access. That is true, but access is not a free-for-all park permit. It's just that it's access with where two people are able to exclusively show up and practice fidelity with one another, and then as they consent and are authentically invested in the process. As I told the client the other day, I'm not trying to regulate how much sex you have. Have as much sex as you want. Have sex 10 times a day. Just do it in a way that's authentic and consenting for both of you. As long as
Exactly.
I don't care.
Not in an entitled way, not in a way that says, because we're in this relationship, I have entitlement to your body.
Yeah,
No, you don't.
that's never going to land home with anybody. Okay, guys,
Yeah,
this is not the 1400s. You are not a Viking, and you did not just conquer some village. Okay, that's not how this works.
that's true.
We don't have that, and we need to get away from that idea and that thinking. Okay.
So to wrap up, she asked, will her desire for the sexual intimacy side ever come back? And the question is, I mean, the honest answer is we don't know. In this current relationship, we don't know because we're not her. But we do know that it won't come back by trying to force it, by trying
Yes.
to fit certain molds or certain expectations, right? There's a process for that return of desire and safety to come back. And it's establishing safety first and foremost, which then can lead to the reestablishment of trust, which gradually reestablishes connection in all 8 of those intimate areas. Vulnerability starts to then return, and then desire starts to gradually come back.
Correct. And there is something to be said, and I do want to mention this as well. Make sure as a partner, because there is your side of the street as partners on this end. And I say this delicately because it's not, this is only if this feels authentic to you. But if you really are authentically wanting to reintegrate sexuality into a relationship, and we hope that you do, but if you do, just like when we have this discussion with addicts, recognize that this trauma can go on for a long time. The issues can be long standing. And just like with addicts, there, especially when this happens over the course of years or decades, biological changes are happening in the background with that as well. A lot of times when one mistake that both addicts and partners will make in this process is that we're going to heal after 20 years of this, and after healing our relationship sexually is going to look like it was when we were 25 when this whole mess started. Well, you're 45 now.
Yeah,
It's
it
not going to look that way.
doesn't work that
And if
way.
you're thinking you're going to show up sexually like you did when you're 25 and 45, at 45 you're going to be, both of you are going to be left with disappointment, because it is very different simply from a biology perspective. So to that end, just like we caution addicts, at some point, whenever it feels authentic or appropriate, if you haven't had a blood panel done recently, go see a physical, go see a physician, right? Make sure that there aren't any other biological issues or what, ranging from menopause or hormonal changes or other things that could be getting in the way as well. A lot of times I have that discussion with partners. They have to ask them, we will go through the discussion of, are you having a difficult, are you having difficulty with sexual aversion simply with him? Or are you feeling more of a sexual aversion as a whole?
Mm.
And there are different tracks in healing for both of those. So
Yeah,
just bear that in mind as well. Okay.
yeah. Now she talked about, they can't separate because there's kids, there's all kinds of life issues,
Yeah.
economics. We would highly recommend that there be a really deep exploration on her part with regard to her own boundaries. What are her wants and needs? And what are the boundaries that she can establish to protect those wants and needs in everyday life? Right? Taking emotional space practices, scheduled off duty time where she doesn't have to attend, for example, to the needs of the kids constantly, right? The trading of duties, the collaboration as a coupleship on how all that works. Sometimes we call those micro boundaries, right? The big boundary would be like, okay, we're separating physically. You're going to live over there on that side of town. I'm going to live here, right? That's a macro boundary, but there's lots and lots of micro boundaries that can be established while we live in the same home. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? We can create an environment of safety even while there isn't physical distance. It's very important to look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, addicts and partners, we love you guys. We have a lot of love for you. We appreciate you. Our our program, Dare to Connect, has been growing by leaps and bounds. We've got a huge group of new people in the program this week. We've had some really good sessions. If you like what you hear here, you will love Dare to Connect. It's not a an advertisement. It's an assertion and a promise. That's what people find, because you get more of the same here, there, but on a more live, more interactive level. Come join us. Grab a 2-week free trial for a program that offers 5 hours of, over 5 hours of live content every single week, an ever-growing library of advanced courses for those who've been in the program for over progressive amounts of time, and live interactive chat and support from both other addicts and partners in this process in a safe and anonymous fashion, as well as access to Mark and I and to live interaction on sessions with us as we pursue new recovery topics and issues, take your recovery to the next level. Join us at daretoconnectnow.com and grab that trial. As always, if you would like to send us questions, you're welcome to do so through the same website, daretoconnectnow.com. Click on the PBSC podcast logo at the top and send us a message to the contact form. We're about 6-ish weeks behind on a backlog of responding to those, but as long as it's an acceptable submission for a podcast, either way, we will get back to you and we'll bring it up. So
yeah, sounds great. Well, thanks for being here as always. We have great love and respect and just a lot of empathy for all of you. And we'll look to pick things back up on our next episode.
Have a great one, guys.
See ya.
Everything expressed on the PBSC podcast are the opinions of the hosts and the participants and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy or as a substitute thereof. It is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of an individual qualified mental health professional. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or a desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.